obsidian fleet hand in hand. So come aboard, let your journey start with obsidian fleet. You'll find your heart in the tapestry of stars, our stories weaving obsidian's embrace, we believe.
Oh no, where have we gone? There we go, we're on the right screen. And we are live with Fleetcast. And I am joined by an extra special guest tonight. I'm joined by TJ from Jupiter Station Podcast. And I am very excited that he's here because his podcast had Trek people on it. And I'm very excited. Hello, TJ, how you doing?
Good, Becca. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited. You need to tell people all about your podcast and how amazing it is and how you've managed to get Trek stars on there.
Oh, absolutely. So my podcast is Jupiter Station, a Star Trek podcast. I do a lot of stuff on YouTube and anywhere audio podcasts are found. And I've been lucky enough, hit or miss, to get a lot of these celebrities on just by contacting their agents. Definitely worth the subscription to IMDb Pro. For sure.
Didn't know that. I will definitely. Chris, note that down for me. Yes, so this episode is a little bit different than what we normally do because we've been doing a lot of the animated series reviews and we've been doing Doctor Who reviews recently, along with some streaming stuff for games, and we've been doing Emu has been doing some writing stuff. But this is a bit of a different episode because it's something that we've always wanted to do. We've always wanted to delve into different subjects that Trek handles well or not so well in some cases. And this episode is going to be about PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, which my personal opinion is Trek handles it really well in some cases. And then there's some cases that I think, ooh, not so much. What are your thoughts on how certain things are handled?
Well, looking back at the episodes I've seen, DS9 definitely did it the best. I think that's really when they kind of like took it by the horns and said, "No, we're gonna start addressing this."
Yes.
But the original series, Conscience of the King, they touched on it as just kind of a plot setup and
Yeah.
a minute's worth of talking, and okay, we're all done.
Yeah, I find that they really didn't really kind of focus on it much in the original series. Like, I've been doing a little bit of research because, as the pod people will know, I have watched probably 3 episodes of the original series. So I apologise that my Trek knowledge isn't quite up there with it. If you ask me a question on the animated series, I've watched all but 4 episodes, the last 4 episodes of that, and my knowledge is pretty damn good. I've got some very epic facts on that. But from what I can remember, and the episodes that I have seen, because I've seen the Doomsday Machine, and that episode has kind of a moment in there, or at least I always felt that there was a moment in there. But the original series, I don't think it handled it very well, purely because there wasn't a name for it then.
It wasn't put into the DSM-3 is basically the psychology Bible.
Yeah.
And it wasn't put in there for like another 5 years after Star Trek went off the air.
Because I feel like Commodore Decker is the prime example in the original series when it comes to PTSD. Because he has both like survivor's guilt, and then, he feels like he's the agent of death for his entire crew. And it really kind of manifests in the way that he bullies the crew, the Enterprise, and like he's like attempts to attack them to obviously stop the planet eater and all of this. But I feel that is the only example that I can think of out of the 4 episodes that I've seen, obviously.
See, and in that respect, that particular avenue is actually a very real response to PTSD.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, they become very separated from themselves and almost like a whole different person. So for Commodore Decker to do that and say, all right, I'm going to separate myself. Oh, that's not Starfleet. That's somebody else. And now I'm fighting with them.
Yeah. and you know, as you've just said, you know, it wasn't named. So thinking on it, you know, the original series was after World War One, after World War Two, and they still didn't have a name for it, even though all these men were coming back from, you know, the World Wars. They called it.
I mean,
I think they
they
called it
called it.
shell shock, didn't they?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's actually what they would have called it. Like,
Yeah.
Gene Roddenberry, having gone to war himself,
Yeah.
like, would have called it shell shock.
Yeah. I just find it such a fascinating time in Star Trek, and obviously I am going to be watching more episodes. And I would love to have you on because I think your opinion would be would be brilliant on it. But that's a whole different other series. But yeah, but like you said, I think DS9 handled it well because I don't feel like the Next Generation handled it very well because Picard had this absolutely momentous change to his life by being, you know, becoming Borg, by joining the collective, and I feel very much like it doesn't actually get any real recognition until the movies and Picard.
Yes, and I mean, looking that up, actually, Family, which was the episode where he went back home and had that knockdown, drag out fight with his
Yeah.
brother in the vineyard,
Hmm.
is actually listed as one of those episodes that just touches on it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't delve into it.
No, it really doesn't, and it's really surprising that it doesn't delve into it. I I I find it hard that the writers didn't delve into it. I find it as someone who writes and someone who tells stories. You know, I weave stories, and you know, our community. I've been trying to get them to give me stories that tackle PTSD over the last couple of days, and I've got, you know, I've got some shorts that are going to go out around this subject with me. I'm looking at these stories, and I just find it really hard as writers that they didn't tackle that in the Next Generation. It would have been such a perfect opportunity.
Well, and that right there is the difference between the shows. When they came out with the Next Generation, it was strictly supposed to be a cookie cutter. Let's address it in 60 minutes or 45 minutes plus
Yeah,
commercials, and move along. They didn't do serialized.
yeah,
The difference is, and especially like season 6 and definitely season 7, Ira Stephen Bear was told, no, we can't do serial on this, and
it's
he basically,
amazing, isn't it?
guess what, I'm gonna do it anyway,
Yeah,
and it turned out really, really good.
yeah,
But because it was an ongoing situation, it gave him that opportunity to really, grab PTSD by the horns and say, well, how would this be handled?
yeah. And I think just DS9 handled it so well. Until Discovery came along, because I think Discovery handles it quite well, but I think we need to delve into DS9 and how they do it and how it affects the characters. And I think, should we start with Chief O'Brien, because I think he
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
bridges the
that poor
gap,
man has
doesn't
been
he?
kicked around his entire life, so let's give him some love.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, I've been obviously doing some research over the last couple of weeks because we've obviously been planning this for a little bit of time, and I have literally found that the producers would routinely put O'Brien under intense like psychological pressure in episodes jokingly called O'Brien Must Suffer. And I am absolutely shocked. I don't know how true this fact is. Okay, so I'm gonna put a little bit of disclaimer, but I've seen it in several places that this is what they joked about the episodes, and I was like, oh, that is a bit harsh, especially because the actor is so good.
Well, he's definitely no stranger to adversity, especially as an actor.
Yes. Just having a quick glance through the notes. No, there's nothing. But yes, Phoebe, your chief. Yes, definitely Phoebe's chief. But yeah, I just feel like this is the character, other than maybe Nog, that kind of gets the most PTSD from DS9 ever. You know, I remember the episode where he kind of relieved of duty, isn't he? Because he's falsely accused of spying,
Hmm.
and they simulate memory of 20-year prison sentence. And then obviously then he has to go back to his normal life, and he's paranoid, he's distressed, and he kind of goes as far as to to do some unspeakable things. And I just keep thinking back, and I'm thinking, what were the mental health services doing at this time? Because this is before that we have Ezra on the ship, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't actually have much in the way of mental health support on the ship on the base. Sorry, it's not a ship, it's a base on the base at this point. And I think it's handled very, very, very well. But as someone who works in mental health, I've got a lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, but by this point, they've coined the term post-traumatic stress disorder, and basically to implant 20 years of fake memories into his head that causes PTSD.
Yeah,
There's got to be some way to undo that.
there's
If you
gotta
can put a
be.
memory in, you can take it back out.
Gotta be. I haven't actually rewatched this episode. Does he ever get those memories taken out? But he doesn't, does he? He literally has these memories forever.
Yeah, and I mean, I think towards the end of the episode, you hear him say, I'm going to remember this forever. Eventually, I'll come to terms with it, but it's going to suck for right now.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if this is why he becomes like the most important person in the universe. We've seen Lower Decks.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah, and obviously he features in Lower Decks as the statue of the most important person in Starfleet history, I think. And I'm now the cogs are working. I wonder if that is why.
It's like that meme. You see like the freighter in the mud, and then there's this little bulldozer holding it up. It's like, the bulldozer is O'Brien, and then the ship in the mud is the whole damn station.
Yeah, I 100% believe that if Miles O'Brien wasn't on DS9, the base would fall apart. I 100% believe in that, because I know.
Well, he complained about that frequently. Like, if I wasn't here to do this whole place would fall apart.
He did. Okay, Cam says they do address that in the episode, that the way they were met, they went in meant that it would cause brain damage and severe loss to other parts of the memory to remove it. Okay, so that makes sense as to why he had to find his closure around those 20 years by himself. I have a bit of a personal headcanon that he gets tons and tons of mental health support behind the scenes. That's my headcanon. And that's why he's able to continue being, Chief O'Brien that we know and love.
Absolutely.
One of the comments is Phoebe's put Lower Decks, the little chief that could. Yes, the little chief that could. I can 100% agree with that. I'm just trying to think of other moments where Chief O'Brien is suffering PTSD. I believe it also happens in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah, that was the one I was talking about with you earlier before we came online. What's it called? Let me open my notes again. I know my notes are around here somewhere. Nope. That was called a very good show.
I think someone's helped in the comments.
That would be The Wounded. And that was when he was actually sitting with Captain Maxwell. And if anything, I think Captain Maxwell was able to benefit from Miles's PTSD. Probably one of the best therapies for PTSD is just to talk it out. And that's exactly what those two are doing.
Yeah. Someone's put in the comments when O'Brien talks about his ancestors getting shot as the Union Man, not PTSD but a cool moment. I think that is the episode that was banned. Is that the No, that's not the episode that was banned in the UK. Oh, there's puppies.
I think my studio mate is having a moment here. Hold on.
That's okay. We approve of puppies and cats and kittens and rabbits, so that's fine. And hamsters. We've had a hamster up here at one point. Is he all done now?
On Chronos, somebody's missing their pet targ.
That's okay. That's okay. But yeah, I think Miles O'Brien needs a holiday after DS9. He needs to go somewhere very, very nice, very, very sunny, and just recover.
And I just saw the comment from Andy Mallern
Yeah,
about I don't hate you, Kardashian. I hate the person you made me.
I think it's a perfect way to sum up PTSD, to be fair. A lot of the time it's events that are outside of all control. And obviously in this case, it was when he was the tactical officer, and obviously he was scarred by what the Kardashians did to hundreds of civilians, which is that better? But we do approve of all the puppies, by the way. We, as Chris has put it, TJ is recorded in front of a live audience.
I was telling my wife, like, oh, I'm gonna be live, like an international show and live. I hope I don't mess it up.
That's absolutely fine. You should see some of the errors that I've made on the time. I actually made an error while we were recording because I went to the wrong screen, because we use OBS to do all the graphics and all that, and I went to the wrong screen. I went to the Star Trek screen instead of, I've popped you into the Doctor Who one because it was the easiest one to edit. And I went to the wrong screen, and then I was like, oh, why is it blank? Oh no, what have I done? I was there. So these things happen. We like to be real on Fleetcast,
I couldn't agree more. I had an interview with Dr. Aaron McDonald, the advisor for Star Trek for Science.
Yeah, I've seen
And,
that.
like, all of a sudden, like, blunk, where'd I go?
Yeah.
And I'm like on this side of the keyboard, and there's nothing, and Aaron's still there. It's like, okay.
Oh no.
So if you guys were wondering, look, this is my office, and she like gave us a tour of the office at the same time. So
That's cool. That's cool. But yes, you are international. As Chris has put it, greetings from somewhere near Scotland. We live near the North Borders. We're about an hour away from Scotland, so it's like Newcastle, Sunderland way, and Chris is a little bit higher up than me. Yes, you never make mistakes, Paul. You are perfect in every single way, Mary Poppins.
so you're on the Klingon border.
Pretty much.
My my ex-wife is Scottish, and I noticed a lot of similar tendencies between the Scottish and the Klingons.
Yeah, if you get closer to Glasgow.
That's where she's from. So I mean, it would explain my penchant for Klingon.
This is brilliant. Like I think you're actually my favourite guest to have on so far, because this conversation is brilliant. I am sorry to your ex that I've said that, but harsh but fair. But yes, I think moving on from O'Brien, should we talk about Benjamin Sisko, because he has got a lot of stuff that he needs to handle.
Oh, from day one, absolutely.
Yes, go on. You can take it away talking about Sisko.
Like he sat in his office getting briefed by Captain Picard, glaring at him the entire time.
I am really surprised it didn't get physical, because we saw what happened when he met Q. Why did he not?
Picard never hit me. I'm not Picard.
Boom. Seriously, it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite memes that when you see it often, that obviously that one going around. But yeah, Benjamin Sisko has a lot of beef with a lot of the universe. His first one's with Picard, but then I feel like as we get in the series, he does kind of handle it a lot better, and he does kind of move on. But I think it's probably done in a very slow way. It's not done. It's not done quickly, because obviously he goes from the Battle of Wolf 359, and then he kind of becomes the prophet of the emissaries. Um, and that role kind of it kind of weighs on him quite a lot. Um, yeah, it just I feel like Cisco kind of gets a raw deal though because he is so many things to so many people, and yeah, it's a hard one. But I would hope as captain he would be getting all the support.
Oh, and that's the thing. Like, looking at the way Starfleet Medical operates, it is a utopia medical system. So you would think that there would be, you know, procedures and treatments for this kind of thing.
Yeah,
So I'm sure at some point he's gotten treatment for it.
yeah. So I've been kind of like researching a little bit, and I find that how his character arc ends with him obviously leaving this plane of existence and going off to wherever the prophets and everything are. I feel like that's kind of like it's all built up in him, and that's kind of how it ends, is him letting go and joining the prophets. But I know that other people have just seen it as him to come into the effects of PTSD. But I like to think that it's his way of healing, because I've read the novels, and I like to think that he comes back and that they're proper canon.
That's a really good way of looking at it. Actually, if he can, the best way for anybody to heal from PTSD is to accept what's happened.
Hmm.
You're not going to ever be able to change what happened. What you can change is how you respond to stuff.
Yeah.
And I myself have had kind of a personal issue of that of late, where I myself have PTSD secondary to a career in law enforcement and with the local volunteer fire service.
Um.
You know, and I was driving through town the other day, and a thought popped into my head, and the the little devil TJ pops up on the shoulder and lets it rip, and then the angel TJ pops up on the other shoulder and says, "Well, wait a minute, why did that sound so mean?"
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Unfortunately, like, one of the side effects of PTSD sometimes or oftentimes is a negative opinion, or
Yeah.
you see the world in a different light.
Very much. Very much. And I think DS9 just does such a fantastic job with showing it. But I like that it actually shows it before the war in certain circumstances, and then it shows it after the war. Well, as the war's ongoing, and then obviously after the war, and how that affects people. It doesn't just show that it's one variety of PTSD. It shows that there are many ways that it can happen. And I think Nog, when I've gone back and watched a couple of episodes with Nog, and I love this character so much. The character of Nog is a Starfleet cadet that we all want to be. He came from a life that was good for him and his species, but it wasn't a life where he wanted to be, and he had aspirations to be something more. And then obviously in the war he loses his leg, and how they handle that is just, it's one of those episodes that kind of still makes me kind of I'm a strong woman and I don't need to cry, but I do have those moments. What are your thoughts on Nog and like sort of his PTSD journey?
Well, I think, like, if you look at canon, eventually Nog becomes a starship captain, and he becomes the first Ferengi starship
I
captain
know, it's
in Starfleet.
amazing.
So I think a lot of how he came back from that, because he was just an ensign when he lost his leg, so he was like a brand new officer,
Yeah, I think
and
I
that
think he
molded how he
was.
became.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Apologies. I think he was literally a cadet, and they'd obviously put him into service. They kind of boosted all the cadets out of the academy, didn't they, and put them onto ships and stuff at that time, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
And with that, you look at him being thrust into a situation, and you know he was out on a dangerous mission and he got injured doing the dangerous mission.
Yeah.
And then lost his leg, goes for rehab, and what was it? It's Only a Paper Moon, which was like the quintessential Vic episode where he
Yeah.
lives with Vic for weeks. And that's the thing. It was one episode over the course of many weeks,
Yeah.
and it shows his entire process as far as dealing with his PTSD.
Yeah. It's
And that's something no other show was able to do before, and because they serialized at that point, they were able to tell this story on a much deeper level.
yeah. I find Nog and the fact that they chose him instead of, they could have chose Wolf, they could have chose Dax, whichever Dax they had at the moment of that at that time. They could have shown in one of those characters, but they chose the character that had such a journey so far. And I feel like they were showing that yes, you can go on this journey, but you will have side quests, you will take step back, and it's actually one of my favorite storylines in DS9, other than Jaxia Dax, and I love that romance so much. It's just such a fascinating thing that they did, and I love the fact that they eventually gave Nog his own ship. It's just fascinating. And even in like Discovery, they recognize the actor of Nog. He had
the USS Eisenberg.
yeah. I was like,
I'm like, oh.
yeah, I did have that moment when I saw that episode. Let's see. Is there anything else on DS9 that you'd like to talk about? Any other characters that you feel have suffered PTSD?
Well, I mean, I would say just about the entire crew of Deep Space Nine.
Well, yeah, you could say Wolf had it obviously after Jaxia died. And obviously the fact that then he has Ezra there. Who could we say? Oh well, Julian Bashir, he has it pretty much every week, doesn't he?
Well, he was also held prisoner by the Jem'Hadar for months.
But yeah, I've forgotten that plot.
And they never once even touched on his PTSD.
They really didn't. I'd forgotten that plot because it's not been quite as big afterwards, because like you said, it wasn't touched on at all. It literally was a blink and you'd miss it moment.
Well, and along the blink and you miss it line, what was it? The siege of AR-558. Like, they started that episode from the moment that away team beamed down. Those troops had PTSD.
Yeah.
Because you see the hypervigilance, you see
the
giddiness. I'm not sleeping. I'm seeing.
That's the night planet, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, and the guy with he's made a necklace.
Yeah, the Ketracel White Virus.
Yes. I remember. It's all coming back to me. Yeah, that episode is such a good example. You're right. It's a really good example of.
2/3 of their forces have been cut down. They are the last third of the forces that beam down, and they're under siege and actively living with PTSD and combat.
Yeah, and I can always remember watching this episode because obviously it broadcast in the UK on a channel that we call BBC Two. And it broadcast pretty much every night. So once it had come out on like Sky, which is our cable, it then kind of broadcast on like terrestrial TV at 6:45 Monday to Thursday. So we kind of got quite a lot of episodes. And I can remember watching this as like an 8-year-old because it was 6:45. I wasn't asleep. I had unrestricted access to a television, and I can remember watching these episodes and thinking, wow, I probably shouldn't be watching this, but I did. And a lot of these stories, they have stuck with me. Like that Night Planet, though I don't recognize the name of the episode, instantly, as soon as you said that, I'm like, I remember. Yeah.
And that's kind of a curse. I've been a Star Trek fan since I was 10, so I can't remember my name on a good day, but I can remember an episode I saw 30-something years ago down to the wire.
mine's songs. I can remember lyrics from like 30 years ago, but remind me what I had to do 2 weeks ago. It's not happening. It's really not happening. Let's have a look at the comments. So, Cam's put, I feel like PTSD is expected for Klingons. Like, what serious warrior hasn't been somewhere that results in that?
That's true.
That's true. But I don't know about you, Cam, but I don't feel like it's ever touched on properly. And then Endy's put, Wolf Elsa had to cope with, I can never say her name, Kayla. Okay. And Alexander before that, and the situation with Wolf and Alexander in DS9 definitely shows how the pain can travel down generations. That is true. Wolf is definitely not the best father.
I mean, there are worse.
Yeah, there are.
Darth Vader comes to mind.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who else. But I do find it. This is a bit of a side quest. I do find
Carol Marcus's dad. If you go into the alternate movies,
yes,
Admiral Marcus was a Badmiral, so there's that.
There is that. Yeah. I'm just thinking. I find DS9 quite funny for the fact that it shows a really, really positive parent relationship. You've got Cisco and you've got his son, and then you've got Wolf and his son, and it's the opposite like behaviors. I find it really, really interesting that they showed this in DS9, especially because of the time that it came out. It's very interesting, and I always think I'm going to do an episode on parents one day, and I'm going to discuss all the parents and their relationships in.
Hang on just a sec. Yeah. Oh, sometimes the issues upstairs. Oh boy. Alrighty, I'll be up ASAP. Oh boy.
Are we good?
I'm getting paged for dad duties. So
okay, no worries.
I may have to go.
That's absolutely fine. If you want to just say whatever last things you've got to on DS9, and we can wrap this up. We can do a part 2.
Well, I'm looking at Cam's last comment. He says, "I'm sure it isn't touched on since warrior societies tend to be very much do not talk about it." And I think that's a perfect balance point. You have the Federation that wants to address PTSD and mental health situations, and then you have the culture of the Klingons where it's like, no, we're not going to talk about that. That makes us weak.
Yeah.
We're not gonna address that elephant in the room.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yes, Cam, it's definitely a good idea. Parenting in Star Trek sounds like another great idea. Yes, and it's definitely going to go on my list for 2025 because I've pretty much planned out this year. But yes, obviously you've got to go for dad duty. Is there anything else that you would like to do? Because I would love to have you back, and I feel like we need to do a part 2 because we have got a lot more to say on PTSD. I feel we've got to discuss. We've got to discuss more serious outside of DS9.
Nothing that really comes to the top of my head, but you've got my email. You can contact me.
Yeah.
Are you on Facebook or no?
The fleet is, and I am. I'll find you and I'll add you. So yeah.
That works.
We're get communicating, and we'll do it at a time that's a little bit more convenient. You don't have to do dad duty.
Yes.
But as anyone who is a viewer of this knows, my tiny human likes to feature sometimes. This is why the background is blurred. Because she does like to feature. Because if she gets a sniff of a hint of the fact that I'm doing a podcast, and she's anywhere near awake, she will be in. So we've been lucky tonight. But yes, I love the comment that's been put in there. Be a better dad than Wolf, TJ. So yes,
hands
down. He is a better dad. He was telling me beforehand how many children he's got in his family, and oh my goodness, how he does it, I do not know. But thank you so much for being a guest tonight. You take care. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Stay lovely, stay logical, people.